This is 2001: A Space Odyssey. It's beautiful, it's revolutionary, it's inspired future filmmakers that you know and love, and it's included in one of the top 100 films on IMDb and holds a 92% Rotten Tomato score. And to be honest, I kind of hate it. And I say that cautiously because I know how many brilliant artists have spoken highly of this film, and it's not easy to find a movie buff who won't sing its praises, and you'll find directors like Christopher Nolan and Martin Scorsese who admire Kubrick's film and consider it to be an inspiration and a masterpiece. But I don't. I found it dreadfully boring, and I always hated that I felt that way until I realized a lot of people feel the same way I do. And I got to thinking about why this film, which is considered one of the best, is a movie I dislike. And after pondering this dilemma, I feel like I finally have a deeper understanding of why some art like 2001 can be so meaningful and great to some viewers, and for others, they can be justified in saying they didn't enjoy it. Let me explain. Let's start with what I disliked about this movie. First, the pacing. 2001 is dreadfully slow by today's standards. I'll admit there are some more interesting portions of the movie, like when Hal and Dave have their standoff, but other than that conflict, the movie doesn't include any other scenes of conflict. Establishing shots are held for what seems like an eternity, and there are vast stretches of the movie where there is no dialogue. The most notable example of this is the Stargate sequence, where we go from Dave arriving in Jupiter's orbit in the spaceship to Dave floating through space in a pod towards colors and shapes for 10 whole minutes. The film also starts out with no dialogue for the first 25 minutes, and instead all we get are apes discovering that tools can be useful for 20 of those minutes, followed by 5 more minutes of establishing shots of the next portion of the movie, which happens to take place in space. And when it comes to character arcs, there are none. Not in the traditional sense, at least. The only character that does change does so unwillingly, and a first-time viewer will have no clue why he's changing or the significance of it. For the last 30 minutes of the movie, we get no dialogue or explanation. We just see a man thrown into a wormhole and then end up in a strange room in which he grows old and then reaches for a monolith and is transformed into a baby. Perhaps you can call it an arc, but it isn't exactly relatable to most people, or really anybody. And in terms of plot, even fans of this movie acknowledge that it's weak. The first 20 minutes of apes on Earth have no relation to the rest of the movie in space, except thematically. Other than that, we see an unknown monolith on the moon, which provides them with a mission to go to Jupiter. That happens, and then our character gets turned into a baby at the end. What was the purpose? What was the point? And really, does it even have a deep meaning? If you really want to read into it, you'll be able to pull out some philosophy or meaningful idea, but this movie doesn't make it easy to grasp onto anything. I've seen various explanations of the final sequence that try to pull out some reasonable explanation, and I've seen Kubrick explain it in the exact opposite way. To me, this feels like abstract art in the sense that the meaning is purposefully left unclear and you can read into it however you want to. And perhaps that's because all those establishing shots and lack of dialogue for the first and final half hour were originally scripted to be filled with narration explaining the whole story, and there was a lot of dialogue scripted and recorded, but Kubrick cut all of that out. And with all that said about why I dislike it, still, the filmmaking giants like Lucas and Spielberg sing its praises, so let's look at the two main things that this film did extraordinarily well. The first of the two things was the visuals. Without the use of CGI, this film is beautifully shot. To this day, it holds up against other space-related films, and it is truly astonishing considering it was made in the 60s. Whole sets were created that really make you feel like you are on a futuristic spaceship. And second, the imagination. It's what most people think of when they think of this film. When this film was made, we hadn't even landed on the moon, and yet Kubrick was paving the way for how we thought the future of space travel would be. Kubrick and co-writer Arthur C. Clarke imagined a future where spaceships had seats with TVs on the back of them long before planes ever did. Have you ever wondered what people working out in space would be like? Kubrick showed us. iPads weren't invented for another 5 decades, but Kubrick included them. It was truly as if he saw into the future decades beyond his time. But at the end of the day, the real question that remains is it worth the watch? Do you get anything out of it? Whether we know it subconsciously or not, we give our attention to things that better our lives, impact our lives, or help us transform for the better. That's why we crave stories with character arcs and themes that inspire. Films like The Northman, which is a retelling of Hamlet, leave you inspired. I felt like I was ready to take on the whole world after watching it, and other movies open your eyes to concepts worth hearing. But this film left me confused. The plot, theme, character arc, pacing did nothing for me. But I can see why the film did something for Nolan and Lucas in the 60s and 70s. It inspired them with beautiful visuals and a glance into the future. But they don't inspire me in the same way, as I've already seen films like Interstellar and Star Wars, and therefore when I saw 2001, 50 years after its release, it didn't push my boundaries of imagination. Other movies have come and surpassed it, pushing the boundaries of our imagination well beyond what 2001 has to offer to modern audiences. The thing that once made it a must-watch no longer has that attention-grabbing ability. And with that being said, do I wish Kubrick never created 2001? No, he created art that inspired a whole generation to reach for the stars and imagine a great future. Without it, films like Star Wars and Interstellar and all the other space movies wouldn't be the same. He pushed the boundaries of imagination, and since then, new filmmakers have taken the torch and carried it further into space. And that's how art works. Art is subjective. Sometimes it helps people depending on their circumstances or their perspective, and for others, it does nothing for them. You can hate it or love it and be justified. And while I say that, I still hold the highest respect for Kubrick as a great filmmaker and a brilliantly imaginative mind. I'm grateful that this masterpiece exists, but the truth is, I kind of hate it. Anyways, those are my thoughts on it. If you guys agree or disagree, let me know in the comments. Feel free to give this a like and subscribe. And the best way to support this channel is to check out my book, The Fall of Man, which is actually free right now on Kindle, so feel free to check that out. Thanks for stopping by.